The grand jury gives us their decision. Will Breonna Taylor get justice? Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. Well, I'm sure you guys all know by now, the grand jury has returned with a decision about the 3 officers who rolled up to Breonna Taylor's house. Conflicting reports. Some said they knocked in and identified themselves in the dead of night. Others said they did not knock and they used a battering ram. My word against yours, etc., etc. Long story short, an innocent, unarmed black woman was killed in her own home. Boyfriend states that she was gurgling for 5 minutes and coughing, and the police did not render any sort of first aid. She was only assisted 20 minutes after the fact, which, according to her boyfriend, was 15 minutes late. Of course, Louisville came back and responded, no, she was only gurgling for a minute, not 5 minutes. Either way, no attempt was made to save the young lady's life in any significant way. And the grand jury has just returned back with a verdict that basically says 2 officers were innocent, especially Mr. Cosgrove, who actually fired the shots that killed Breonna Taylor. Only Brett Hankinson was booked and charged, and he was charged with wanton endangerment. Now, wanton endangerment is a Class D felony that carries with it, I believe, a max of 5 years. Meanwhile, our president of the United States of America issued an executive order and threatened over Twitter up to 10 years in prison for destroying monuments and government property. Go ahead and let that sink in. Miss Taylor, the person who killed her wasn't charged at all. And as a matter of fact, I was going to shoot on this yesterday. But one of the officers who was wounded in the shooting stated the following: I know we did the legal, moral, and ethical thing. You did the legal, moral, and ethical thing to invade a person's home, kill them without recourse. Okay? All right. And so this this situation is mind-boggling to a lot of people because on the one hand, a couple days ago it was announced that Louisville settled with the family of Breonna Taylor for $12 million. But on the other hand, the person that killed her has no charges whatsoever, and the person that didn't kill her is facing a few counts of wanton endangerment for putting bullets in the hole of the wall because there's an adjacent apartment. So it was wanton endangerment to shoot the wall of the apartment, but not to shoot her. This is the rationale. Now here is what the AG, who's black by the way, the AG is black. Here was the justification. Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron on Wednesday said that the officers were justified in their use of force because Taylor's boyfriend fired at the officers first. Now this is a very strange thing to me. You know, when I talk to my very non-racist, very white, Glenn Beck watching, QAnon conspiracy theory pumping, non-racist white friends who are part of the NRA, they tell me, Vin, you've got to understand, the Second Amendment is not about hunting. The Second Amendment is not even about home defense. They say, you know what the Second Amendment is, Vin? Then they'll quote, I think, was it Jefferson? They say, you know, Jefferson, one of our founding fathers, he said that every so often the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of tyrants. Vin, the reason that we have a Second Amendment is so that the government has to constantly live under a tacit threat of civil unrest because the governed are always going to outnumber the governors. And so we have a Second Amendment right to keep government tyranny in check. Isn't that what we're told about the Second Amendment? Isn't that why this country, full of mental illness, poverty, and all the rest of it, is flooded with all these weapons? Isn't that what you told us? So let me get this straight. How many of you right-wing, gun-loving, Glenn Beck watching, how many of you guys think that the Founding Fathers would ever co-sign an action like a no-knock raid into somebody's house without a warrant? How do you think that would have went for the Sons of Liberty if Britain would have tried to do some nonsense like that? So, that being the case, we should see the NRA all over the place, right? Because this is a situation and a circumstance tailor-made for the NRA. Isn't that true? You got an American citizen, and by the way, Kentucky's a castle law state, right? They got a stand your ground state. You got an American citizen deploying his freedom pistol against a government that either A, broke down its door without announcing who they were in the dead of night, or B, did announce who they were, in which case, again, this is a form of government tyranny. Either way, the NRA should be in complete and total support of Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Mr. Watkins, I believe his name is. Shouldn't they? Does anybody know if the NRA is out on the streets right now protesting this obvious miscarriage of constitutional injustice? They were justified in shooting because the boyfriend shot first. Now, the boyfriend also called the police and said people had invaded his home. And he was also losing his mind. Obviously, anybody that's watching their girlfriend die right in front of them with no help whatsoever would be losing their mind. And then, when he was getting patched up, one of the officers said, "Are you hit anywhere?" And he said no, to which the officer responded, "Unfortunate." That's what he said. Let me ask you a question, dear listener. How do you think it would have turned out if Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend decided to go on a no-knock raid at this officer's house? Right? Like, what if Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend did a no-knock raid in the dead of night at Officer Cosgrove's house and put 5 bullets in his white wife? Do you think? And then let's say that as they're running into his house with weapons drawn, or with the threat of weaponry, if he pulled the weapon and shot at them, do you think there's any grand jury in the state of Kentucky or in any precinct in the United States that would ever let those two off because the person that they invaded shot at them? Does that make sense to you? You know what's really interesting to me? It was really interesting to me. Mr. Trump has decided to opine about Kyle Rittenhouse. You know, Kyle Rittenhouse is the little white kid, the 17-year-old that walked right past the officers. Nobody knows why. Has nothing to do with white privilege. But the dude that shot up those 2 people, one of them was definitely Antifa. And, you know, I've seen the video, the full-length video, and I said this from the beginning, that this kid has a very, very good case for self-defense, right? Because the first dude that he shot was displaying a whole bunch of antagonism, and about 45 seconds before Rittenhouse shot him, there was a blast in the air. Like somebody else had shot. It wasn't that guy, but somebody else had shot. Rittenhouse turns around. The guy is coming at him in an aggressive posture. He takes him down. So to me, that's a case of self-defense. I get it. Trump opines and said, come on, this kid was defending himself. You know what's interesting? How comes Mr. Trump hasn't said, well, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend was just practicing self-defense. He doesn't know who the hell is on the other side of the door. What does it look like? Somebody, you know, ramming down your door at the dead of night. You don't know what's going on. This is self-defense. Why isn't Trump saying anything? He opines. You know, Rittenhouse, he had an opinion. The dude that shot, the Antifa guy that shot the Proud Boys guy, whatever the guy's name was, last week or 2 weeks ago, he opined about that. He called the guy and he opined when those two officers got shot. Remember that? He called them animals. And then when the Antifa guy got killed, without a trial, by the way, you do realize, right-wingers, that even if you don't like the person, they should still have a trial. And even though you've already convicted them in the court of your public opinion, they should have a trial. But for some reason, this guy got killed. Okay, all right. And Trump says that there has to be retribution. That's what he said. But in the Breonna Taylor case, why haven't we seen a tweet that says, hey, these officers put Breonna Taylor's boyfriend in a situation where he had to defend his home? How come? And how come nobody's asking the question, well, if the roles were reversed and they put a couple bullets into Mr. Cosgrove's life, do you think that they'd get off? You know, Kentucky has a death penalty. I think those two individuals would get the death penalty if they did that nonsense in Kentucky. What do you think? I was talking to somebody about this because they were asking my opinion, and I said, well, people are going to die behind this. People are going to die for this shit. Because, you know, it's like Brother Minister Farrakhan said in the Justice or Else tour that he did after Philando Castile. Farrakhan said, what are you trying to force us to do? You can't tell people that, hey, listen, if you destroy a monument, I'll give you 10 years in jail. If you kill a black woman, nothing's going to happen to you. But we will go after you for putting a couple bullets in a wall. You can't do that to people and expect that nothing's going to happen. So here we are. I'm on FoxNews.com. The FBI Louisville SWAT team has responded to an LMPD officer being shot and will continue to assist in the investigation. What did you think was going to happen? People are human beings after all. I know some of you don't really believe that black people are human beings with emotions. Like, I've got one of them in the chat. You know, I'm sure he's going to respond. And people are like, yo, why are you always talking to that guy, blah, blah, blah. Because I love my racists when they're racist. What I don't love is racists who pretend that they're not racist. That's the shit I can't stand. That's the shit where I say, man, I'm so happy this individual is in the virtual world and not in the room with me. So now we've got Fox News is saying 2 officers shot. You know, when that kid went up and shot those 2 people, those deputies over there in LA, and the LAPD whatever thing says, you know, 2 officers were shot in a cowardly act that was completely unprovoked. Whether it's a cowardly act, I'll leave to your opinion. But whether or not it's unprovoked is a demonstrably false statement to make. These are not unprovoked shootings. These are absolutely provoked shootings. And I just... what did you expect to happen? You know what's happening? Is that there are certain people that have a certain mentality about black folks and they're used to a certain type of response from black folks. But this is a generation of people who have now seen a multitude of people that look like them get shot and killed and have then become radicalized. Not by Marxists. This is the thing that's massively hilarious to me about people on the right. These people are not being radicalized by Marxists. These people are being radicalized by far right wingers in their social media. Those are facts. When you have a guy like George Floyd dying and calling out for his mother, and then you get a bunch of crazy memes mocking him and mocking anybody that would grieve and mourn him, that radicalizes people. When Eric Garner's last words are, "I can't breathe," and people are wearing "I can't breathe" shirts in solidarity, and then you put a bunch of crazy, silly memes out there about how you can breathe, that radicalizes people. when Botham Jean and now this young lady are killed in their own homes, and then you silly people post memes that say, you know, if you just follow the law, nobody would get shot. When things like that happen and people are feeding on them on a consistent basis, that is what radicalizes people and makes people very dangerous. You know, one of these guys, after the cops were shot in LA, like minutes afterward, the guy was taking cell phone picture and mocking and laughing and all the rest of it. People were like, well, I can't believe, I just don't understand this degree of hatred. What do you mean you don't understand it? What do you mean you don't understand it? You do understand it. You understand why there's deep-seated hatred for people that do this and that belong to institutions like this that consistently get away with literal murder. And it's so brazen that one of the 3 criminals that did this to this lady came out and said we did the moral, ethical, and legal thing. You don't know why people hate police? You don't know why these police over there would be targeted? Ladies and gentlemen, your brother is a Christian. So because of that, I am always going to say, responding to these situations with that degree of violence is not good. And at the end of the day, we are Americans. And I gotta tell you, the Rittenhouse situation, and then a week or so after that, the other dude that got shot in broad daylight, all those people that died are Americans. Now we got apparently two officers shot in Louisville, Americans. And Breonna Taylor was an American. So all this blood running the streets of a country that I love very dearly is absolutely heartbreaking. But make no mistake, human beings can only take so much. And not everybody is like me and believes that Jesus is the only hope for the world. But I would commend to you, if you're one of these people, red, yellow, black, or white, because although we're catching the most hell as black folk, there's a bunch of white folk that are sick of this nonsense too. And if you're one of these people that is so, you have reached your terminus, literally for the love of God, don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything silly. And if you have a weapon, put a lock and key on that shit. Give the key to somebody you trust and say, for the next 2 months, I don't need to have access to my weapon. We got to put the guns down, y'all. All that's going to do is play right into the already existing confirmation bias and give even more excuses for us to be gunned down in the streets by these obviously demonized people. So I would appeal to you to not follow the bad example of the people that just shot those cops in Louisville, or follow the bad example of the cops in Louisville. Jesus says those who take up the sword will die by the sword. And what is happening, believe what you want. I'm just telling you what I believe. You're in a country that's flooded with more guns than human beings, and now we're reaping the whirlwind. So if your solution to gun killing and gun violence is more gun killing and gun violence, you're not thinking rationally, which I know it's a very, very big ask right now for people to think rationally. But we have to, because it is obvious that the patients are running the asylum. Those 2 cops, I don't know if they have families, but I'm assuming that they do. They got wives and they got kids who are not part of this horrific system. Now, the institution of policing, let's make no mistake, the institution of policing is inherently corrupt. I've got testimony from folks who are in the law enforcement community that talk about the blue wall of silence and all the other nonsense. The police department has been a consistent tool of white supremacy and has been the military wing of white supremacy. And if you don't believe me, just go and Google Dr. Martin Luther King protests and see who is sicking the German shepherds on the peaceful protesters, see who's doing the water hose thing, see who's physically assaulting women, see who is ganging up on black men who are peacefully protesting and not resisting. Just go look and see. Yeah, I ask this question all the time. In what year did the institution of policing become uncorrupted? We know about the slave patrols, and we know about what they did during the civil rights era. So tell me the specific year in which that institution became uncorrupted. I'll be a skeleton. I'll have a place next to Breonna before anybody can really tell me what year that happened. It's a corrupt institution filled with evil people. However, those officers' children had nothing to do with that nonsense. So, look, I understand the institution of policing. I understand the entire thing. But what about these people's children? I mean, I got kids, right? Whatever anybody feels about me, if I die, Dad's not coming home. So I'm imploring you. Now, I know some of you are going to say, well, so what? If one of these bastards shoot me, I'm not going home to my kids. Yeah, but those are people, those are demonized people. Can't argue. You cannot argue yourself into doing demonic behavior because you're looking at the example of people who are obviously controlled by demons. So anyway, that's my plea to you. You got 2 officers shot. And on the one hand, I say, what the hell did you expect to happen? And more are going to be shot. And more police are going to shoot civilians. But here's something that people do not realize. And I know it because I talk to these people. I talk these people off the ledge every time something like this happens. We have been communicated to by the systems of government in the United States of America that if a certain class of people kills us, there will be no recourse. And this decision is monumental because what it says is if you're black, you're not safe in your own home. These folks can roll up on you in your home and kill you, and nothing will happen to you. Nothing. They'll go after your, they'll seek justice for the wall and not for you. So you know what that does to a group of people? They go, oh, well, if that's the case, I don't have much to lose. This is unavoidable because I can't get out of my skin. How about Tatiana Jefferson? She's in there playing Xbox with her little nephew. And PD goes in there and kills her in front of her nephew while she's in her house playing Xbox. So you got a lot of people now who are like, yo, they can kill us for no reason. So I got nothing to lose anyway. But the folks who occupy positions in this institution, you've got a lot to lose. So that's why these dudes are getting shot now in broad daylight, because people are like, they're going to kill us anyway. Nothing's going to happen. So now what happens is the law no longer functions as a deterrent for corrupt police officers, which then means that there's no deterrent on the other side either. That's the arithmetic people aren't putting together. Because when you put people in a situation that way, they don't even care if they don't have the numbers to win. They just want to hurt you. And that's a situation that we're coming to. And I do my best to argue against it when people are arguing that to me. But make no mistake, that's where people's mindset is right now. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable stuff. If I wasn't a Christian, good Lord. Prayers go out to everybody. You gotta watch yourself out there, y'all. You gotta watch yourself out there, because this is 2020 is looking like, you know, you got the Trump situation where he's not committing to leave, you know, transition to government. There's just a lot of things that could go wrong, man. And part of me believes that to some degree the stay inside your house thing and social distancing thing might be a blessing in disguise to keep us away from each other. Maybe God's putting us on a timeout before we all end up doing something reckless. But there we go. Unbelievable stuff. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys.